Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. You're watching In Deep on the Delta. This is the weekly report for August 17th. Big news. In Deep on the Delta reached 1 million views this past week, and I want to thank all of you for watching and supporting the channel. I'm going to be doing a giveaway. The giveaway is going to be held August 30th, and I will be announcing the winners on the report. August 30th report, we will announce the winners. Now, I want to make sure everybody is aware that whenever a YouTube person announces a giveaway, there is a chance of scammers. If someone calls you or sends you an email or tells you you won, don't believe them. The winners will be announced on the In Deep on the Delta August 30th weekly report. How do you qualify to be in the drawing? You just have to send in a comment or send me in a report. If you guys have already sent a comment in or report every week, I've got your stuff on file. Now, if you're watching, and I know there's about 3,000 to 4,000 people that watch every week, I definitely don't get that many reports and people commenting. Make sure you send something, so that's going to put you in the queue to draw from. So make sure you don't have to say anything. It's maybe a thumbs up, whatever. Just get in there, and you will be eligible for one of the drawing prizes. Now I'll talk about it next week. So you guys have 2 weeks to get in and get your comments in. You'll have this week, and next week I'll talk about it again. And then we'll go from there. You have 2 weeks to get a comment in, and then you are involved in the drawing. So with that, let's do a little business, and then we'll get into the report, and then we'll get out and go fishing. This Sunday, the 11th annual Mike Vaughn Classic Bass Tournament is going to be held out of Ladd's. Now, I'm not sure on all the details on that. I know they have some Instagram information on there, so if you're interested in that, if you knew Mike, 11th annual Mike Vaughn Classic, and that's Sunday out at Ladd's. Check that out. The other thing you're going to probably see this weekend is that the Western Kayak Anglers Alliance, their West Coast Championship, is on the Delta. They're going to be fishing Friday and Saturday. It's going to be probably well over 100 kayaks, and they're going to be launching from all different launch ramps on the Delta. They are going to have their weigh-in ceremony Saturday at the Lodi Parachute Center. I'm going to try to be out there. I'm going to maybe get a chance to film some of the guys that caught some fish and maybe get some information and see what's going on out there. So if you're out there at the Lodi Parachute Center on Saturday for the ceremony, make sure you hit me up and say hi. I'd love to talk with you and see how you guys are doing. Okay, let's get into water conditions and what's going on with the bite. 78 degree temps here in the Central Delta around Paradise Point. We're going to have 104 degree temperatures. That may pop up a little bit if you're out north, up around Liberty. You probably have a few degrees less, water temperature. But right here in the Central, about 78 degrees. Or some of the big news this week is that the people down in the south are starting to catch some fish. Little by little, the water clarity is inching up. It's still not great. We're going to, I get reports from 2 to 3 feet. But whatever it is, the fish are getting used to it and they're starting to bite. So you guys that are coming out of Tracy, Manteca, maybe from the Bay Area that generally fish that South Delta, you may be able to, get in at River's End and, fish that area and start to pick up some fish out there. I know it's been tough for all year, but the fish are starting to pick up. Let's talk about stripers before we get into the largemouth bass. Talk to Alan Fong. They're catching fish, trolling Sacramento River from Rio Vista, down the West Wall, all in that area. There's fish coming into the Delta. I've got reports of guys catching fish around Perry's. Things are starting to happen with stripers. I've got a lot more information or reports from guys that are fishing for largemouth bass that are catching stripers in the bycatch. Most of those guys are throwing jerk baits. I've noticed that I catch about 1 or 2 stripers, through the course of the week when I've been fishing. And I am also noticing a lot more sea lions. I haven't seen a sea lion for maybe 2 or 3 weeks up until this past week, and I've seen a half a dozen of them. So the stripers are moving in. If you're fishing Stockton, I would start about the McCollum River out. That's where the fresh fish are going to be. I think the fish that we're catching here in the Central Delta are residents. Or, you know, if you want to trailer out to Rio Vista, you'll probably have a little better luck. I think there's a few more fish in the system. Hopefully I'll get a hold of Jeff Suhu this week, and I'll see if Jeff has any idea on, with his connections, on what's going on out in the bay, and maybe we can see where that migration is and moving in. Hope that it moves in here in a couple of weeks. Let's talk about tourneys. New Gen had their tournament last Saturday and Sunday. 60 boats. First place, 35.5 pounds for 2 days. Harvey Pullman won that tournament. He had a 5.7 kicker. Congratulations to Harvey, but I'll tell you what, 17 pounds a day, 17 and a half pounds a day to win a tournament. Delta's still not kicking out the big fish. I looked around the middle of the pack. Most guys were, again, 2-day tournament, and it's a pro and an am on each boat. They're picking up about, I'll say 10 to 12 pounds a day. Pretty tough fishing. Lunkers tournament, Wednesday or Tuesday night Lunkers tournament. Last week they had a 23. I think they had another bag over 20 with I think 12 or 14 boats. They had a 19-pound bag. This week they had 17 boats. Charlie and Mark won it with 16.6. Again, those weights have dropped off. Who knows why the tournament weights have been dropping off this week? Could have been, just the ebb and flow of the bite, moon phases, tides, could have been a lot, but for whatever reason this last week, it stayed pretty flat. I was hoping that it would continue to, the numbers and the size would increase, but it stayed pretty flat. The average guys, the guys that are sending me, the weekend guys, the guys that are working 40 hours, I don't want to call you guys average, because some of you guys probably do very well on a lot of tournaments that come up. They're catching more and more fish, and they're getting a mix of nice fish. Everybody's getting, 1 or 2 really nice fish. The big complaint is that there's a lot of small fish, and you got to run through the small fish to get a couple of big ones. Now, I want to talk about hook setters again. Hook sent a couple more pictures in. Hook took his wife out. Hook's wife caught some fish, and so I decided I better call Hook and see what's going on and what his keys to success are. And number one, he's punching. He's a hardcore puncher, and he's getting his big fish punching. He's saying he has to move around a lot. He generally fishes the Frank's Track area and around there, so he's not fishing any secret places. He does find places where he picks up a lot of small fish on worms and drop shot, and at that point he picks up and leaves. And I think that's hard to do for a lot of people that just get to fish once a week or a couple times a month. If you're catching fish, you want to stay on them and hope you catch bigger fish. But the key to catching those bigger fish is moving around, at least for hook setters, is moving around, punching everywhere he can punch, find a couple of big fish, one here, one there, and that's his key to success. All of the reports that I have been getting, still a good early morning bite, a good late evening bite. The bubble walker has been the number one bait, topwater, that everybody has been talking about picking up fish. I've been using that Rico, still catching fish on that. The Rico, the bubble walker, bubble popper, little small popping baits. That's really the key. And the bite, generally the morning and the evening bite for me has been about 15 to 45 minutes depending on the day, and it's a very short bite window. But I have been getting lots of reports where people say, hey, I fished for 3 or 4 hours, nothing, then all of a sudden 3 o'clock in the afternoon the topwater bite starts. So keep that in mind. I would definitely keep a topwater bait on deck at all times, especially a small popper. I listened to a little podcast or something. Luke Johns was interviewing Ken Ma from the Fisherman's Warehouse site, and they were talking about summertime baits. And first thing Ken said, he relies heavily on topwater baits for tournament angling in the summer. That's you can get big fish on topwater baits. So don't listen to me, don't listen to the guy at the dock, but if Ken says it, it's probably going to be a pretty straight shooting out here. So with that, last week I told you, keep a frog rod on the deck, put your punch rods under deck. Well, about 2 days later, I start getting reports, man, I went out, I got him punching, I got him punching, I got him punching. Probably shouldn't have told you guys to leave your punch rods under deck. I want you to pull them out this week. Keep a punch rod on deck, keep a frog rod on deck. Fish close to cover. If you're fishing with the frog, fish the heavy stuff. If you're punching, make sure you're given a good opportunity this week. You may not catch a lot of fish, but you're going to catch bigger fish punching. If you're out early or late, make sure you've got some type of small popping bug to fish the outside of the same areas that you're fishing when you're frogging and punching, because at low light they're coming out and they're moving around, they're feeding. That's the best time to catch good numbers of fish and a couple of good solid fish. After that, people are catching fish on pretty much everything. A lot of guys are starting to throw jerk baits out there, and those are also the guys that are saying they're picking up stripers on the jerk baits, but they're catching multi-species. They're getting a few stripers, a few largemouth. It makes for a fun day. Worms are still extremely productive, but you're going to have to, just go through a lot of small fish to pick up a 2-pounder, and for every 2-pounder you pick up, you're going to have to catch a lot of those to catch a 3 or 4-pounder. So it's not a big fish technique right now, but it's an action technique. I'm catching a few fish on big baits, spooks, shower blow. I got one on a shower blow this week, bigger baits that are much more surface disturbance, and we've had a little breeze the last week, early and late, and I think that's why the bigger baits are working at those periods. Now, if there's no breeze, I go right back to that little Rico or small popper, and it's hard to put that down because it's probably the most productive bait I've had in the last couple of weeks. Also catching fish on chatterbaits, you definitely want a chatterbait on there. Green pumpkin or some type of flamethrower. Stripers will start hitting that flamethrower if they're in the system. So keep a frog rod, punch rod, chatterbait, and a topwater on. You'll have fun. If you just want to catch fish, make sure you're drop shotting or throwing a small worm, and you'll have plenty of action. If you're taking the kids out, make sure they're drop shotting. They'll have a great time out here drop shotting. So thank you guys so much. Remember to tell your friends that we're going to be doing a giveaway, and the only people that I can contact are people that I know are sending in comments. So just send a comment in. I may not be able to answer all those comments this week, but if you got a comment in or you have sent in a report, you guys are already in. So thanks for watching, and guess what? See you guys on the water. Good luck.